one of my units that I study is regards on migrants. Now, we have assessment, which is oral presentation, regards on choosing the governments that implement rules and regulations to deal with the illegal migrants, or AKA in Australia we call it the boat people. The boat people that came in during the 90s. So let's go on and talk about this video. Okay, now before this video begins, I think this is the best time for me to make this video, and I'm not saying it because I want to get views or anything. It's better to understand what is going on, especially with Donald Trump and everything, and as well of Pauline Hanson. So let's begin our presentation. Alright, so John Howard, there you go, 1996 to 2007, when he's on the government. Now the units that will be covered will be the process of implement border controls. Why did John Howard close the border? Why create an offshore detention? There you go, we've got John Howard on your left, and we've got the Afghanistan, the country, and where else go? We've got like a bit of military, things like that. 11th of March 1996, John Howard came to office. Selected. 27th of September, Afghani civil war outbreak in Afghanistan. Why say Afghani? Sorry, Afghanistan. A quick note before the video begins. I haven't seen my presentation for the last 5 months, so I'm a bit rusty on it. So I haven't included this slide. So it's 1992 or 1993. Paul Keating established detention center within Australia. So different states have detention centers captivated with illegal migrants, aka you guys may know it, boat people as well, to detain and to go through the consequence, or as well go through the path and everything. That's how detention center was begun in Australia, and things gone out of the hand, and therefore why our government implement such a stricter laws as well. Now, 1998, One Nation. You guys might know it or may not. The Pauline Hanson Party. Afghanistan, after they had their civil war, or they drained out the civil war, the country has sent shockwave across the globe. In Australia, it's potentially considered possibly a third wave of migrants. The second wave of migrants, which is the Indo-Chinese, the effect, which is 157,863 asylum seekers that we accepted within Australia. And during that time, Pauline Hanson see the effects, saying, we accept these Chinese, what they had happened during the time in the past, and the effect that created in Australia as well. And it's really it makes more sense. And I was speaking to my landlord, and all the old folks been telling me, like, when the first wave, which is the Vietnam boat people, after the Vietnam War, right? They shed shockwave across the world. Right, we've got Vietnam, which is, I think Indo-Chinese will be accepting as the Vietnam or the Chinese one. But anyway, either way, one of these. I know the first wave is coming from the Italy around the world and everything, but the second wave is from... anyways, you kind of get the story. So, Vietnam, when they came in, Australia back then, Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, early Saturdays, you only open a shop half day. And now the effect, of course, as buyers, after accepting the Vietnam, the boat people who flee from war, is that they began opportunities, competition, and begin to open Saturdays and Sundays. And from that day on, as you guys know, Australia is a Christian nation, and they go to church on Sundays as well. And ever since the Vietnam came in and the Indo-Chinese came in, things changed rapidly. Jobs are getting a lot more competitive. Jobs have been taken away. not taken away. Jobs has been taken by the Vietnamese and the Chinese people as well, the Indo-Chinese, and yeah, it creates a lot of competition, and that's becomes, you know, opening Saturdays and Sundays. So right now our trading hours are 7 days of the week. So that's the effect of what we're seeing from Vietnam and as well from China, Indo-Chinese. I don't want to get too much to it. So Pauline Hanson had the vision knowing the damage of upcoming third wave. By visa restriction, by introduced temporary protection visa. Now you guys may know this, right? Pauline Hanson wasn't even credited for bringing up this whole idea of bringing, you know, TP. You know, TP is temporary visa, a temporary protection. TV, sorry, temporary visa. People say PR, permanent residency. Yeah, TP. I told you, I'm so rusty on this oral presentation. I haven't touched for 4 months, so yeah, 4 or 5 months. So Philip Roddock, the immigration minister, declined Hanson's idea due to creating for far greater damage upon asylum seekers through uncertainty future, fear of being sending back. Now, that is interesting during that time. So even though Pauline Hanson, her idea wasn't the greatest idea, and things, and she's not even credited or notable for about it. Pauline Hanson, I know a lot of people hated her because she's very westernized, very, I don't know much about her, but what I do know about her, she's like a whistleblower. And for her, she brings ideas up, and I'm pretty sure her recent campaign is stopping banning Muslims coming in, bringing some things like that. I'll get further on to that topic, but let's focus on the oral presentation. Get too excited. A year later, so after Pauline Hanson fear of the third potential wave coming to Australia, and that's when the Afghan civil war outbreak, and the Labour, the Liberals, the Parliament ignore her request. Right, a year later, Middle Eastern wave has emerged to Australian soil. The people smugglers got so advanced in risky boat journeys with an all-time high. So you can see on the graph, right? Pauline Hanson mentioned about it in the 1998, like we should make strict restriction on visas, so therefore illegal migrants coming to Australia will think twice about it. But as I mentioned before, the Parliament and the government just doesn't even bother take her consideration seriously. So a year later, you could tell, 1999, look at the statistics of the boat asylum seekers. It went rapidly ballistic crazy. Alright? So here's the facts. 1999, third wave effect. Roddock introduced temporary protection visa on the 20th of October 1999. How amazing is that, right? So in 1998, Pauline Hanson brought the whole idea up, but she wasn't credited. She was swept on the carpet. Doesn't really bother her. But now, under the Howard government, thanks to Roddock, introduced temporary protection visa. Now, TPV holders has limited freedom. What stood out is 3-year visa, no family reunion, and can't travel overseas. Now, basically is, under this visa, you pretty much have to stay in Australia with no family reunion. So you can't visit them, they can't visit you, so you have to stay this and do that. Introducing a new visa which brings 2 protection visas options for unauthorized boat arrival. Now, I know I've done this one a bit wrong. It's not safe haven. SHEVS is introduced by Tony Abbott. So I'm sorry. I should rub that out. I don't know why, but yeah. yeah, so a bit about that. Visa is, it's up to 5 years. Holder must intend to work or study without receiving support benefit on the first 3.5 years. Under the visa, you're allowed to travel overseas, but you cannot visit your homeland. A chance to receive a PR. That's the upper hand of getting on this visa. You have a upper chance of receiving a PR, permanent residency, if you're not knowing. Or Americans, they might call it the green card. Year 2000, we made it. Integrated Humanitarian Settlement Strategy, IHSS, is to advocate newly arrived migrants, helping clients assess, access, and familiar with Australian services and lifestyles as well. With a strategy to take in place 6 to 12 months, monitor their performance, their achievements, to go through their months. The goal of the program is to integrate a client within the Australian society. 2001 Tampa Fair. I wish I have this photo right in front of you, but seems like I didn't put it on here. But yeah, it was a major event that occurred that changes the outcome. A news that caught the globe attention. Tampa Affair. On the 21st of August 2001, our government will not accept 433 asylum seekers that's been rescued by Norwegian freight. And that Norwegian freight, that event will call Tampa Affair. It was a huge effect. I remember I was a kid. I was 11 years old. I didn't know anything. I didn't watch news or anything. But I did remember newspaper talking about this particular event. So out of the sudden, we had flooding waves. As I showed you the graph earlier on, 1999 to 2001, there was a massive fluctuate increase of people coming to this country. More than 600% increase. So yeah. The Howard government demanded the freight to turn the vessel back. Australia is no longer accepts boat people. Opinion survey results shows Australia voters voted 77% yes for Howard stopping boat arrival. I'm sorry, like the grammars and everything, because I was really rushed with this whole presentation to get everything together. Or perhaps I have bad grammar. I'm sorry. So yeah, 77% people say yes for Howard government to stop boat arriving. It's pretty much securing our borders. So yes, I don't understand why. Back in 2001, people started saying no. So yeah. 2001, coming up a plan. The captain couldn't turn the back boat around. 433 asylum seekers preventing the captain to turn, which resulted staying on the same spot. So what happened is the Tampa Fair, they wanted to turn the boat around, but 433 people, asylum seekers, will prevent the captain to turn around, used by physical, violence and force. Therefore, left with no choice, remaining on the same position, I think for the next 7 days, or 4 days. Australians, on the other hand, demanded no onshore boat arrival. So that's what's coming from Australia. It took 8 days for the Parliament coming up with a solution by offshore detention to Nauru Island by using Australian Navy as transportation. Very interesting, right? Now we're going to Nauru Island. You guys may know about this. 2001. Let's get serious with our border. The government passed through 3 laws just to secure our border. Border Protection Bill, the power of refuse and remove unauthorized vessel contain asylum seeker. Tampa Fair is one of them. Pacific Solution, an offshore detention center for asylum seeker in Nauru and Manus Island for asylum seeker. Operation Relax, Australian Defence Force monitor water tutorial with the alignment power of Pacific Solution and Border Protection Bill in charge of incoming unauthorized boat. Now, the reason why they making it even tougher during that time is because of 2001, because that Tampa affair happened during August, right? Now, things gone a bit worse. I think it's going to come towards to Pacific Solution. Pacific Solution comes in 8th of September. Actually, 18th of September or 13th of September, because what happened in September 11, that literally shook Australia, hold everything off, control our borders and everything. That's pretty much what happened in Donald Trump right now. Like, he came to the office, secure his border, stop 7 of the countries that's been listed by Obama, to stop everything. And during that time, Australia did the same thing during the 9/11, right? And stopping all the borders, securing everything, and just push it to other, to offshore detention, and deal it from there. Where Donald Trump, he just made a cut through and say, no, you can't come in. You just can't come in unless we got a regulation and rules. But in Australia, it took probably 3 months to come up with a law, like coming to how to make a strict regulation for unauthorized boat people. But this is specifically target Middle Eastern. Because in Australia, I've read this sociology book in Australia. One of the Australia book is that Australia doesn't favor Middle Eastern, China, Asia, Africans, and even Jews coming to Australia. They're more acceptable of accepting Europeans to come in. Now, the least they want people to come into Australia is probably the Africans and the Middle Eastern. So Asians are above that. So, oh well, interesting, right? To know a bit of facts and figures to know that. So yeah, but during that time, nobody says about oh, you guys are against Muslims or Middle Easterns. But in Donald Trump or the leftists or social justice warriors or feminism, they just went bombarded, went crazy on Donald Trump, his movement. But in this scenario, I'm trying to puzzle myself how come Australia, nobody is going ballistically crazy at it. But I know, I was a kid so I won't know much, but I know during that time there was mass protests and everything going on during that time in Australia, bringing up the border protection, Pacific Solution, Operation Relix, and offshore detention as well. Australia did go crazy, but not the way how America is. Pretty brutal over there. So yeah, that's 2001. Hooray! John Howard completed his 4th term of Prime Minister in 2007. The Howard government decided to grant 9,500 refugees who's on TPV upgraded to protection visa out of 11,300 refugees. Protection visa subclass 866 allowed refugees to stay in the country permanently. So okay, so I'll try to reword the whole thing because in my class they all know about this story. So for you guys who might not know, so you guys remember John Howard introduced the law, offshore detention. So there was 11,000 refugee captivated in detention centers, whether it's I'm not sure about within Australia or the offshore detention. So after his term was finished, those who are on the TPV, temporary visa, what happened is they keep renewing their visa. So you keep renewing every 3 years, right? You keep renewing every 3 years. Basically, you be on a queue. You're queuing up for 3 years and 3 years and 3 years until the government granted you a permanent visa, right? PR. Pretty much this is a permanent residency. Pretty much they granted 9,500 refugees to grant a permanent residency. This is the stage where people say queue jumpers. Oh, they are queue jumpers and everything like that. And that's why John Howard brought up this Pacific Solution Bill of Protection and as well of Operation Relix during that time. So that during that 3 years of renewing visas, where these guys who didn't committed a huge crime but just escaping to a country to go to a safer country to have a better life, but they detained in detention centers. And these people have a lot of problems. They have physical, emotional, verbally, emotional needs. Like, they've been broken down, they've been hustled down. And I don't know if I have a link for to show you, but you know, you can, those who've been detained during those detention centers, whether in Australia or offshore, they have a lot of problems going on. They have trauma, they burn themselves, they pour petrol and lit themselves. Yeah, a lot of suicide, self-harm, and just mentally just dying, not knowing when they can able to be freedom, to see freedom, to come to Australia, or to be secure of staying in Australia permanently, rather than be on a visa, on constantly, not knowing when they're going to be sent back to the country. Now, for the TPV, that's something I never mentioned more about on this video, because I deleted on my previous. I deleted. I had a long version of my oral presentation. I had to cut it down to this small because of it's a 5-minute presentation. But you guys may see this video if I got for how long it is. So for the TPV, they have, like, obviously they can't visit their family, they can do things. They have limited rights on the benefits and everything, and as well access to government services. So basically, limited English or no English, coming to Australia with this visa, whether they're in detention or off detention. I'm talking about the ones that stay in Australia with temporary visa. They had to work. Right, the government won't subsidize their course. They have limited rights and everything. That's why one of my mate that I know, Nathan, when I did the video of twist cricket, bucket twist cricket. Yeah, that video. Nathan, he finished his studies on his masters, and he wants to apply for temporary visas. Now, temporary visas, you can do that, but as well, he wants to apply for permanent residency as well, at that lodge the application. Now, his masters is not considered as shortage in Australia, so therefore it will be a huge struggle, and he has to go through what these guys have to go through, continuously renewing his permanent visas. No, sorry, temporary visas as a working visa, and not knowing when he'll able to get a permanent visa. Now, obviously, employers will not want to hire temporary visas because they don't know, because they're staying in Australia in the short term. It's a lot of, they don't have like work rights or Australia work fair, so there's not much rights for temporary visas at all. We'll talk more about it towards the end of the video. Okay. Summary. So, from 1994 to 2007, you can see the ones with the orange is the migration programs, right? Migration programs, those who comes in as in Australia, those who comes in as working visas or family visas or something like that, temporary visas, right? Humanitarian programs, that's the yellow part, that's how much it is. Australia accepts roughly around 13,000 under humanitarian visas, and they immediately granted a permanent visa. I know one of my mate, Mayan, he was part of a humanitarian program. Gosh, his story is astonishing. You know, he's from Sudan, and his father and him just to seek for UN tent for protection, and he went to the camp and he stayed for God knows 6 years in the camp. His father died during staying in the UN camp, and it only left him and his auntie. They had a choice to go to America, but they declined the offer. Then they went to Australia, and a boy like him, he's 22, 23 now. 2 years ago, he worked his ass off and pretty much just granted bringing his whole family to Australia. For those who doesn't know, coming from South Sudan, that's a war-torn, there's a civil war ongoing, the newest nation in the world. And for him to bring like, I think 7 sisters and 1 mother, all by himself, and granted permanent residency, that's a very, very touchy story. Somehow we'll try to make that video happen. Okay, so asylum seeker by air. So those who seek protection coming through air, there you go. They went through the queues, and as well they get detained in detention centers within in Australia. I've met one of the asylum seeker. He actually came from air. Adini, he went through detention because he feared that if he goes back to he flee from his country because of prosecution from the government, and he stayed in detention center for quite a long time, and he came out, and now he's granted his family to come in. So let's get back to the asylum seeker boat. As you can see, the blues on 1995 is pretty small, and 1997, Pauline Hanson, 1998, not much, and 1999, look how much it is, boom and boom. Now, after 2000, late 2001, which is September, having the bill protection and as well of the Pacific Solution, you could tell from afterwards 2012 and 2002 and 2007, no boat arrives. So yeah, so that's the calendar of 1979 to 2012. So you could tell, like you know, the wave of the boat arrivals, as a lot of Australian people call it, or the government call it, or the news will call it, the jeez, why I'm lost my mind, the queue jumpers. Now after John Howard finished his term, I think it was Kevin Rudd opened his border up, abolished the whole concept of offshore detention, or securing the borders of offshore detention, and it skyrocketed back again. As you can see on this chart, it was going crazy back again, 2008. 2007, 2008, something around there, and he went up high skill. And Julia Gillard came in, or Tony Abbott came in, and closed it again. So, yeah. So that's my thoughts in today's about each of the government. This is how I see myself. So, Rudd and Julia Gillard, that's the same term. I find the government is playing a human farming game with offshore detention centers just to gain votes. John Howard open, Rudd close, Gillard open, and the PNG wants to remain closed. But last time I made it so sweet. John open, Rudd close, Gillard open, the PNG wants to remain closed. So PNG, Papua New Guinea, which is Nauru and Manus Island. I wonder which island we are going to invade next. Now, the next island we are going to invade next is America. America is accepting the whole large amount of them, and that's why Donald Trump is saying this is a stupid deal. So yeah, the Papua New Guinea still wants to remain closed. The Australian government still doesn't want to accept them. But we don't see that mass riot that's happening in Australia. But essentially what Donald Trump is doing is, or Obama's trying to do, is try to make a way of securing their borders. Like we securing our water tutorial, where Donald Trump wants to build a wall. It's a pretty much the same concept of building it, just to keep a distance away. Donald Trump's, or America or other worlds, wants to learn what actually happens in Australia, securing our borders. As you can tell, European, there's no borders, therefore Brexit has to happen. They voted yes for it. French president election, one of the parties is voting, and who's really pushing for the French Brexit. I can't say French. Yeah, gosh, that'll be hard. French Zek. So yeah, Tony Abbott, when he stepped in, he literally brought back the whole secure of the border. So it brought international breaking the human rights. Yeah, the UN as well. So yeah, the whistleblower, Tony Abbott, so we go back to Tony Abbott, the whistleblower shared information what had the government did to innocent people. I find it disgusting. Australian government flood their money under one condition, by keeping confidential with all the wrongdoing in the Senate. So during the time of the Pacific Solution, staying in detention center, there was very, very poor facilities and helping with the client. And as well, during that time, they kept their mouth shut. Organization who worked there will not leak any information what has happened in detention centers, how inhumane they treat these people like dogs and animals. Therefore, I said it's wrongdoing for Australia. But after Tony Abbott stepped in, there was information, confidential information leaked out. So yeah. So John Howard, alright, so me and Heath, so there were three of us who do each of the government. So Heath was doing Tony Abbott, and Melise was doing Rudd and Gillard. And me and Heath, let's go back to that one. And me and Heath attended to watch a Freedom Stories film night, a film showing the struggles of asylum seeker who has been in detention center up to 11 years. It shows that people who detained were sewing their lips, hunger strike, self-harm, burning themselves, suicide, and called by a room number instead of their names. So it's very inhumane thinking that way. So there you go, that's my bibliography. This is literally legitimate, it's my school work, if you guys do not believe me. So yeah, so what I can say is that Pauline Hanson, I don't know much about her, but I've gone through her YouTube videos. She's a very smart cookie. You know, she's very, very smart. She's like a whistleblower. She brings out the stuff that what Australia needs to look at and things like that. But the problem with Pauline Hanson, people won't see her as credited. Usually the Labours or the Liberal Party will get credit this sort of stuff. Now, Labour Party is more for bringing more people, and as well, you know, Liberals are more saving money and just wants to reduce the debt, where Labour wants to increase it and things like that. But what I say is that, yes, Pauline Hanson brought the whole idea of stop bringing, you know, with Muslims or with the Shia laws and everything, and she has a great idea of bringing that. I'm not saying it's the perfect idea, but whatever her idea is, she won't get credited, and some other government or minister will get credited once she gets pulled down. That's the sad part, just to see that. But yeah, her rules, her stuff, her ideas would never be to see what it is. Now, Trump, Hanson, Pauline Hanson, it's funny to see this whole thing. Like, Australia is one of the advanced country out there who secure their borders and everything. America and other countries of the world try to follow the same thing. They say, you know, Australia is managing, they want to manage the economics and everything as well. They care for the people and everything. Yes, we do think of that way, but also we have downsides as well. Pauline Hanson made a good note about this, and I made this video. Look, I watched this video, and Pauline Hanson released this video 2013-2010. She said the Australian government saying that as unemployment rate in Australia is 5.7, but technically they are not include those who are like definitely those who are studying or those who are on working as volunteers and things like that. Now, she said Australia is 10 or 15% unemployment rate. which is a true factor, which is the government doesn't talk about. The good thing about Pauline Hanson, she knows about the Agenda 21, and as well with the UN 2030 agenda, which I find it very fascinating. Pauline Hanson really gets her head really up high. She's like a whistleblower. But I totally agreed with Pauline Hanson saying that it's true. Unemployment rate is not 5.7. I'm sorry, man. Because if you go out literally for a job hunt nowadays, you go through like group interviews. Now I'm not saying like 20. That's your wave of your group interview wave. In a day, they have to conduct 3 interview waves. Like probably 60 or 70, 75, right? But they also have two days of going through interviewing wave. And more people are looking for work. Therefore, it can't be 5.7 to be unemployment rate. It can't be, no way. There's more people will go on interview and submitting their resume than there is ever before there's jobs out the market. So I give props to Pauline Hanson for that. And yes, that is the video of how my thoughts on views on how Donald Trump, Hanson, and as well securing our borders. I think it's a very important to acknowledge what is going on. I'm pretty sure America is going a really tough time with going through all of this riots and ongoing battles in the countries. But yeah, that's the video that I'm proud to make this oral presentation, which I did not include much more about Hanson and as well with Donald Trump. But I just added include because I think this is the perfect time for me to release this video right now. Now, I'm really proud of my this oral presentation. I've had 52%. That's my mark out of 100. Now, for those who doesn't know, I grew up dyslexia. I didn't know how to read and write, and I'm always bottom of the class. And for me to have 82, I'm pretty much like a second or the third highest mark in my class. Our teacher is a tough cookie of marking as well, and as well, I have to give props to my social justice warriors, my classmates. 2 of my classmates, I don't want to mention their names, but they try to challenge me after I finish my presentation. They say, how dare you say boat people, William, and you're so, you're so against migrants coming to Australia. And like, give me that sort of vibe. And I said to them, well, I'm sorry that it came out that way, but I have to speak a tone or the language that's been used 1996 to 2007, right? And as well with the I have to thank Melise to back me up, help me up as well for the Pacific solution. Her father went on these detention centers and everything, but gosh, those 2 classmates who tried to beat me down, but at the end they got me a good mark because the teacher knows that I have the information and I can back up my information resources to those 2 little girls out there. I can't say 2 little girls, but two of the girls in my class. And when they did their presentation, they weren't even prepared. They were just looking at their papers and everything. On my presentation, I literally don't have any palm cards or paper notes, or I haven't even prepared. That was my presentation. All I have was words up there. I had to do a 5-minute presentation, and I made the target. Rest of my classmates who done way over 5 minutes each of their presentation, but I was the only one who did 5 minutes. Now, I did not cover much about my presentation because I realized the temporary visas the government introduced for the working visas and as well other protection visas. I'm not sure, maybe the student ones as well. So yeah, I'm really proud of me making an oral presentation 5 months ago, but for me it's really rusty for me to to get back all that information back again. Yeah, I really hated that, but yeah. Oh well, I really like it. I don't think I'll ever make a presentation like this ever again. But I have to thank those 2 girls who try to be conflict. And you know what's the funny thing? One of the girls who used my information, who stole my information. The others don't even talk about. They're Indo-Chinese.